The bad weather hit us at about 7,008, 7,7 maybe, 7,8, 7,9, something like this. I could walk, but it was getting really dangerous for me working with the ropes as well, and I was hallucinating. So Gianpaolo was above me, but I think he went off route, and it wasn't until next morning I realized that was a hallucination as well, because he was not in his tempo.
Oh.
I lost a lot of it. My grip strength completely disappeared, vanished after not being able to even do like this for a couple of months, like bending the fingers.
How do you raise the money to climb so many mountains? So hello and namaste to everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. So in this episode of On the Mic with Parth, we have a very special guest with us, Tim from Sweden. He is a mountaineer, an alpinist and a cyclist. Just to let you guys know, before recording this podcast, I just asked him to send me the list of the mountains that he had climbed before. Just so I have an idea, what all he has done. When I received the email, honest to God, I was not expecting to see what I saw. I was just scrolling through the list. He has climbed over 50 mountains, over 5,000 meters, all across the world. And most of his styles are solo and unsupported. And in 2022, he was on an expedition to Annapurna 1 in Nepal. It is regarded as one of the most dangerous mountains in the world to climb. I was there in 2021. Almost had to turn back just a day away from the summit. In 2022, when Tim was there, things went out of control, situations went out of hand, and he was stranded up on the mountain alone. And fortunately, he survived, but unfortunately, he got severe frostbite on his fingers. Some of the fingers had to be amputated. I have been following him on Instagram since the last 1 year, and really I can't imagine, the worst fear for me is to lose my fingers, because I can't imagine living my life without fingers. Everything that we do, from brushing our teeth to cooking to eating, everything is done with the fingers. To see him lose the fingers and not lose the spirit in some ways, and getting back on his feet, getting his strength back and getting the momentum back. I have seen his journey on Instagram, and I thought that okay, let's invite him on this podcast and hear from the man. A lot of interesting things we spoke about, and I really urge all of you, whether you climb mountains or you don't climb mountains, the spirit of this man, the mindset of this man is something that all of us can learn something from. So without much further delay, here is Tim. So whenever you're ready, we can start. I don't have a lot of things planned. We can just start and see where it goes. That's how I like it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hello and namaste, Tim. How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm good. I'm here in Sweden. I just came out of 9 months frostbite recovery. I'm still in recovery, basically. Trying to get my strength back after an accident on Annapurna last year. So I'm doing much better now once I can be more outside, and I recovered. I've done the surgery basically on my hands, and it's healed up, so I can be back doing what I like running, and I'm going to explore climbing again and so on. So I'm doing much better than the last 9 months for sure.
Awesome. I've been following your journey on Instagram ever since the Annapurna time. That's when I got to know about you. And to see you go through, the frostbite, the injury, and then I've seen how your hands were. Then for a few months, you tried to, I think, recover as much of the finger as you possibly can. And then the amputation happened, and then you've been on this recovery journey that I've been following you. It's so inspiring because, as a mountaineer, I always think this, that if I lose my fingers, my life would be finished. That's how I thought, that's how I used to think. But looking at you, coming back on your feet and recovering and doing all the things that you like, it's absolutely inspiring, man. So that's what I wanted to speak to you about. So what happened on Annapurna? I'm sure after you came back, a lot of people have asked you this question. but what happened up there, man?
I mean, it took us 12 hours to reach the summit from the high camp at 7,000. Just above 7,000, we had our high camp. So the summit push in terms of time was, it was decent. 12 hours to the summit is okay. And but the thing was we were up there 2:00 in the afternoon, and just as we were up on the summit, the bad weather was coming in from the other side of the mountain, from the jungle side, basically. It was expected that the weather is going to shift in the afternoon, but I didn't expect that I would be trapped in a total whiteout where we couldn't see any tracks. So we had to wait out during the bad weather for I don't know how long time it was. Basically, we could continue later in the evening once the sun was setting and it cleared up again. So during this time climbing without oxygen, my body temperature went down, my ability to think 100% wasn't there. I was starting to hallucinate, because when you climb without oxygen, you need to stay in motion, and you need to, it's for the blood flow in the body, and the cold hits you much harder climbing without oxy. So my mind got affected from the standing still in the whiteout. So I started hallucinating.
So what were you seeing?
I was seeing Sherpas coming up the mountain to help us, and they didn't exist. That was the first thing I saw. And later on, once it was dark, I was climbing down on the route. I saw tents that didn't exist. They were lit up tents in the dark, basically. So I was thinking I saw my neighboring tent on the way down, but when I tried to find it, there was nothing there. And later on, I saw another camp climbing down. And when I arrived there, there was no light. So I thought maybe I'm at the wrong place, because maybe they went to sleep or something. There is no light on the tents. And that was basically when I turned around and started climbing up to the earlier tents I saw, because I really wanted to find my camp in the darkness. And also my visibility was really bad up there, maybe affected by the altitude, or maybe just from getting snow into the eyes. From having my sunglasses covered with snow, I was without sunglasses for a while. And maybe that could have affected the vision, or maybe it was the high altitude that was affecting my mind, and my vision was not as good at all in the darkness.
So how high were you at this point where the storm hit you? You were on the summit, but when things went wrong, what was the altitude there?
So on the way down, the bad weather hit us at about 7,008, 7,700, maybe 7,800, 7,900, something like this.
Got it. And just for the people here who don't know, Annapurna is at an altitude of 8,091 meters. So 7,800 is just like 200, 300 meters below the summit when you were coming down. Yes.
So there were also more people up there. There was a big Indian group with Bharat, and Baljit was there. And they were basically at the summit simultaneously as me. And there were also some people coming up behind me towards the summit. Ali Pepper and her Sherpa, and Jean Paulo was also coming up a bit later when we were already at the summit and turning around. The thing is, what you can do differently in the traverse, you can mark the route better with the sticks, like bringing some flags and stuff like this for navigation. We didn't do that. The fixed rope, when you're on Annapurna, you cannot expect it to be as fixed as for Manaslu, for example, or K2 these days, because there's just not so many people, not so many in the rope fixing team as on the more commercialized peaks, I guess. So yeah, this is what I learned, I guess, from not getting stuck in bad weather. What you need to do, you need to mark the route better for sure. And that is basically up to me as well. I mean, for next time, I would just have to bring some of my own sticks, or we plan for this on a big traverse that is not fixed with ropes, I guess. So anyway, I was stuck up there during the night because I decided to stay outside. My visibility was really bad. I was working for 22 hours or something. So I was getting really tired. I could walk, but it was getting really dangerous for me working with the ropes as well, and I was hallucinating. So looking back on it, I think it was a good decision to stay out, because the terrain is quite steep. In that state of mind, it's really dangerous to even move on the mountain. So I felt I had to stay one night out, which I did. And during that night, I got my severe frostbite.
I want to ask you, you say one night, but that one night must have felt so long, because I'm sure there was no sleep, and the things that go in your mind, and the cold, and this the whole situation is so hard on the human body and human mind. So how was that night like? What was going through your mind? What was your body like in that night?
So I decided to clip into the fixed ropes, into two ropes, or yeah, I had three anchors basically, or three connection points to two ropes and one anchor. Just tried to clip in with everything I had basically against the mountainside, against the ice and snow. It was quite steep, so I was sitting down basically hanging off the fixed rope, which might have been better in terms of exposing your body against the cold. If I would be laying down, maybe I would have gotten more cold and more damage from the cold as well. So I was sitting with my side like this against the wall, basically, hanging off the rope. And I got some sleep up there. I got a couple hours sleep. I got my conscious back when the first light was arriving, maybe 5, 6 in the morning. And I got more of my visibility back, and I could orientate myself much better on the mountain to try to find my camp the next day. Of course, I didn't expect the frostbite to be so severe, because I had like really good expedition mittens, some of the biggest one you can get on the market, basically the Peter Hutchinson design Omega mitts, which are really awesome. But in this case, it didn't work even with the biggest mittens, I guess, for my frostbite on the fingers. And I also had another glove, and I had a woolen, really thin glove as well. So it was 3 layers on the hands. And even with that, I could feel in the morning that the frostbite was just on another level that I got on the fingertips.
No, I think it's, especially on a mountain like Annapurna. And as you know, Annapurna is summited in April, 3rd and 4th week, which is like still just the end of winter. The spring is just starting off. So it's very cold, that period. And what I have seen on, in my experience, that no matter how, best quality gears that you're wearing, if you don't keep walking, your body will get cold. I think it's the movement which makes the body warm. And I think that's what went wrong when when you could not move, when you did not move. I think that's when the cold started seeping in more, no?
Yeah. Once we were trapped in the bad weather, and once I was waiting there during the night, for sure, that was the case.
And were there other people around? Did they try to help you? Did they try to in any way try to conduct a rescue for you? Or what was the reality over there? What was the situation there?
So Gianpaolo was above me, but I think he went off route.
Okay.
Because he was also affected by the altitude. And he went another route, I think, because he was not on the route when they later rescued him. And the other people were below me, and I didn't really ask for help because most of the people there were out of oxygen on the way down. So I cannot jeopardize their safety for my own, basically. And I did ask sometimes, like, hey, do you see a tent? Like, I see a tent. Do you see anything also? So that was the only help I was asking for, to try to find my tent. But at one point, you cannot hold those people back. They have to go down to safety as well.
Of course. When I was on Annapurna, when we were on our summit push, so when I started from the base camp, just a few minutes after we started, I started developing a very bad stomach infection. And up to the route to Camp 1, I was completely screwed up. Somehow I managed, spent a night there, took the antibiotics, made it to Camp 2 with a weak body. Could not sleep that night. Next day, made it to Camp 3. Camp 2, Camp 3 is, as you know, very long. And at Camp 3 that night, I had very bad hallucinations. And, it was like I was sleeping and I was dreaming, but then a dream stops when you open your eyes. But this dream was continuing with my eyes open, and I was sitting upright and the dream was still continuing. I asked my friend to smack me on my face as hard as he can. And I think that's when I woke up. So why I'm saying this is, when you are hallucinating, and once you realize that you are hallucinating, for me, it was very scary that what the hell is happening to me? I've never seen something like this happen to my brain. I always thought that my brain, things are very much in control, but when they start going out of your control, so when you realized it is hallucinations that you are going through, so how did you deal with that? What was going through your mind when you realized it was not reality?
So everything I was seeing could actually have been on the mountain, like humans, tents, and more humans and tents, basically. That was the only thing I was hallucinating. So I couldn't extinguish the hallucination from reality, basically. Unfortunately, it happens with people that they hallucinate things that they can recognize as a hallucination. It happened on the 8000ers as well, but in my case, that wasn't the case. And so after my night out, I continued to drop altitude.
Yes.
Because I recognized I have severe frostbite. I just need to get down, basically. And I did find my camp, my tent, in the light. And I could get and when I found the camp, I also saw Gianpaolo in his tent next to mine. And it wasn't until next morning I realized that was a hallucination as well, because he was not in his tent.
Oh, so basically this hallucination was something that you were hoping to see. You were hoping to see your friend, you were hoping to see the camp, you were hoping to see the Sherpas coming to rescue you. So that is what your mind was trying to recreate for you, right? That's what was happening, I think.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And also, I thought I heard over the radio that they were sending some people up to help us, basically.
Okay.
Just after the weather cleared up. And I don't know, maybe that was some kind of hallucination as well, because I was thinking I heard it over the radio, but maybe that was a hallucination as well.
So you had a radio with you?
Yeah, I had a radio, but it changed frequency, and I couldn't restore the frequency after the summit, basically.
Oh, so you had the radio, but you could not establish the contact down to the base camp?
No, I couldn't use it because it switched the frequency, and I couldn't get the frequency back, basically. It was a Chinese Baofeng radio I borrowed, and somehow, I didn't remember up there how to get it back, the frequency, basically. I tried to, but I couldn't get it.
That must have been very frustrating to have a radio which is working, but somehow you are not able to connect it to the people at the base camp. Must have been crazy.
It's okay, because that wasn't the priority, basically, to stay on the radio. Priority was to get to my camp, so I can survive up there.
The fixed ropes, as you said, were not there at for most of the sections, or in between where you got lost. So
they were there for the main of for all the vertical parts, it was fixed. But on the big traverse, it's quite far, the traverse, really. It's a big stretch, so you don't really have to fix it, because the terrain doesn't require it.
Yeah.
But it's only for the navigation. So the reason why we didn't start earlier also, because I started 2 at night, basically, was because there was also heavy winds. I don't know exactly how heavy, earlier in the night. So we knew the winds are going to come down a bit, and try to go when the weather is a bit calmer to get the body temperature up. But in the end, if you look back on it, of course, it's easy to sit here with all the facts afterwards, and it's easy to say, but we should have started earlier, for sure.
So what time did you start?
2 at night.
12. Okay.
Yeah, there was also some lines outside the tent. There was a steep section. There was some people there around like 1 o'clock. So that affected us a bit as well. And but we should have just started before that, and we would have probably been fine, even if we would have suffered the first hours during the night. But once the body temperature is up, you're doing all right.
No problem then. No matter how hard the winds are, once you are warm, you can keep going.
Below 7,500 at least, and up to 7,500, maybe 7,600. It gets harder. The higher you go up, the more energy you need to keep the body warm. But I've been up on Manaslu on the fore summit without oxy. I've been on Dhaulagiri without oxy, and it's about to. It's better to have the tough weather in the beginning than in the end. For sure.
Of course. And for people here who don't really experientially know the difference between climbing in the dead zone with oxygen compared to without oxygen. So in your experience, how is it different? What changes when you are not using oxygen as compared to when you are using oxygen?
I've never climbed with oxygen.
Okay.
And I think that your body gets warmer with oxygen. That's what I heard. It's easy you have more energy with oxygen. It's more energy in the body to heat it up. So you stay warmer basically. And that's one of the main challenges up there, I guess, with the cold, if you climb without. And also the movement, your rate, vertical meters above 7,500, 7,600, it starts to drop. Like for every 100 meters you do vertically, you go a bit slower, I guess. And if you push yourself too hard during that time when you're at that altitude, you can get blackouts, you can get hallucinations, and you can start doing mistakes. So it doesn't really matter if you're like a pro athlete, like Chilean also had blackouts on Everest when he pushed up from the base camp. And so it's about finding the pace where you're in control of your body and you don't push too hard. You cannot really you cannot afford to push your body too hard up there. And that's why you need to be early out as well. Because at this time on Annapurna, I was pushing really hard for the last 200 meters, I guess, because I saw the clouds are coming in and we are so close to the summit. I wasn't even the last one. So I was thinking, I'm fine, it's the weather. I mean, it's going to be a bit cloudy, but we're not going to get trapped or anything. But that is exactly what happened, So, so you learn from your mistakes, I guess. A really valuable lesson for the future. And also when I climb alone in South America, a lot, I bring the GPS coordinates for all my camps as well.
Okay.
And I didn't do this time for my high camp, basically. So when I was checking on my phone, I saw that I forgot to put the GPS point for the high camp as well, which could have helped me to find my tent, I guess.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's easier to say, oh, we could have done this, we could have done that when, it's done. But when you are there, only if we can see the future, then we would have planned it differently. But I guess that's how it is. And, when I was on Everest, we were speaking about oxygen and without oxygen. So I climbed it from the north side in Tibet. So up till North Col, Camp 1, 7,100 meters, life is slow and you are struggling and, it's hard up to 7,000 meters. And for me, that was the first time when I was going to use oxygen. It was my first 8,000er. The minute I put on oxygen, it felt like I'm walking at 3,000, 3,500 meters. And I was just thinking that, okay, life has gotten easier, but this is not right because I'm not experiencing the reality around me. I'm in my own bubble. And that's when I promised myself that any 8,000 meter I climb next time onwards, I will either prepare myself to a point where I am ready to climb without oxygen, or I will not climb at all. Because I didn't want to be in my own comfort zone of my oxygen and think that, oh, I submitted 8,000. No, you submitted maybe a 4,000 or something like that in your own experience. So on Annapurna also, I was without oxygen. I reached almost till camp 4, but then the stomach infection, my body was very weak, and I thought that, okay, maybe I will be able to summit, but for sure I will not have the energy to come back down. So hopefully I'm trying to go there this season. If the money falls into place, let's see, but it will be without O2 for sure. So yes, coming back to your story. So you said when the light came out, the first daylight, you started to go down towards your camp. So how far were you from the camp?
Just one thing about the oxygen as well. I was thinking about.
Yes.
I think, it's still pretty dangerous, even if you use oxygen on the 8,000ers. And I think it's fine that people are using it, but if you look at how the 8,000ers developed and the story of it with the pioneers and everything, and there's a lot of hard people who've done a lot of hard stuff there that we hardly do anymore, the pioneers who opened up the first routes and all this.
Right.
And it's possible because they did it already back in the day. And but we are kind of going away from that pure style, I guess. If you look on terms of climbers a bit on the 8,000ers, most prefer to use oxygen, and I respect that. There's a lot of people who has family back home. I guess everybody has, it's much safer to do it with oxy, and you want to go up and down, but you still want to have the experience, the adventure of the 8,000er.
Exactly.
I guess makes it understandable a bit why you do it with oxy, and why you shouldn't judge people who are there.
Absolutely.
Who climb in their own style. And there's always another level, like a next level of difficulty. Even for us who climb without oxygen, you can go like from the base camp to summit push in one go without skipping all the camps and stuff like this. People are doing this today. So this would be like the next level, and then you have the technicality level, which you can rise as well and climb without fixed ropes and climb yourself. So I think this is, I don't know, it's important to mention when you speak about oxygen or oxygen things.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very personal thing. We should not compare that, oh, he climbs without O2, so that is the right way. No, there's no right, no wrong. You see your situation. What is your priority? Is your priority just to summit, or is your priority to have the hardest and the most purest experience that you want? Then again, as you said, you have responsibilities back home and things like this. So it's a very individual decision to make, and it's never right and wrong. And unfortunately, nowadays on internet, I call them keyboard mountaineers, who have not ever climbed a bloody 8,000er, but they have all sorts of opinions and judgments to make about everybody. What would you say to these people, the keyboard mountaineers?
I think there will always be, also in any kind of topic, you will always have these people.
Absolutely.
Especially with people who gain fame. The more famous somebody is, gets more critics. It's just the same everywhere, I guess. The pattern is the same. And you just have to deal with that if you're going to share your life with other people online. People are not always going to like what you're doing or the style you're climbing in, if you're climbing, or there's always going to be people. And the more followers you have, the more of this you'll see probably.
Absolutely. After I climbed Everest, my summit photo, unfortunately, I had only 1% battery left in the phone. And I wanted to go on the side to take a photo, but my Sherpa said, if you go on the side and, if you find the nice place and whatever, your battery will be over. He just made me sit between people And that photo looks like it could have been anywhere. Could have been anywhere in the world. You can't see snow, you can't see view, and there were these smart asses who were like, no, this is a fake photo. I'm like, okay, it's a fake photo, so what? I knew what is reality, and I had nothing to prove to anybody. And that's what I always say, that whenever somebody has judgments and opinions on you, rather than responding to them, just think of why you started doing what you are doing. Stay true to your core, the reason why you started. Stay true to your purpose, and all these noise will be just noise. When dogs bark in the street, you don't give much attention to it. Why? Because it's just barking. So I just think of them like that.
I think it's all right to, with the high mountains, because there is no judge up there, nobody can judge it for you, the performance or whatever. So, and when you claim something on the 8,000ers, I think if you want to claim something on the 8,000ers, you need to be able to prove it as well, because a lot of people can say they did something without being there.
Yes.
So the documentation is quite important, because you are making a claim on something quite difficult. And the more difficulty it gets, the more documentation has to be to prove that you actually have done that.
Absolutely.
And that is something that is very important in mountaineering, because some people are losing their life trying their hardest, and some people are photoshopping the way to the sun. Yeah.
Yes, there was a incident in India. I mean, there have been most fake summits on 8,000ers happens on Everest and from Indians. And that's a very unfortunate thing as an Indian to say, but that is the truth. And there was an incident which, we found out that it's a fake summit, and he was going to get the highest award of India. And we raised our voice and we tried to remove him from the list, and it just happened in 2 days. So yes, I mean, people will always find ways to beat the system, no matter how hard you try to document. But yeah, I mean, such people will always be there. And these are people who climb for the wrong reasons. They climb for the rewards that they will get after the summit happens. So when a lot of people go, then you'll attract all sorts of crowd for all sorts of reasons that they are going there.
I'll tell you about what happened after when I wake up.
Yes.
After spending the night out, I realized that I have frostbite on my fingers. So start working the ropes and following the fixed ropes down, basically rappelling maybe 200 vertical meters, maybe less. I'm not sure. It was really hard to work with the ropes with my frostbite as well. But I managed, and I rappel off the steepest parts. And then at one point I did see my tent, and I also did see my ice axe on a slope further out. I couldn't get it because I lost it during the night, and it fell down basically. But I did see it the next day, but it was too far away I couldn't go out because it was too dangerous terrain basically. I would have had to clip out from the ropes and everything.
Okay.
And onto that ice axe, I had also put my Garmin InReach Mini.
Oh, so even that was gone.
I put it onto the ice axe during the summer, during the summit, to put out the GPS coordinate basically. So when I was transmitting the GPS from the summit, it was attached onto the ice axe basically. So I didn't want to have it in the snow. But then after the photos, we took some photos of each other on the summit, and also after that I forget that the Garmin is onto the ice axe, and we were starting to getting a bit in a hurry because the bad weather was coming in basically. So that was another mistake. It felt a bit like everything that could have went wrong basically went wrong, because I had some problems with my crampon as well. It was coming off on the way down.
Oh my god. And putting back the crampons on with the frostbitten fingers must have been very, very painful.
No, that happened actually just after the summit.
Okay. And
so
how long?
I actually got help from I think it was Baljit. She helped me to put it on just after the summit. And already there my condition started to deteriorate a bit, because I was pushing so hard to get to the summit. Basically, you need to take it very easy the last 300 vertical on the 8,000 without oxy, and I was pushing too much up. So I think my condition has started to deteriorate already at the summit. And what else? So during the day, I think I lost my crampon again during the daytime after spending the night out. So I had only one crampon, and but I managed to get to the tent. And in the tent, I had my stove, I had food, but the food wasn't the priority. Priority was just melt water.
Yes.
Get dehydrated again.
Yes. Yes.
Drinking and sleeping. So it was basically drinking and sleeping for the rest of that day until the next day. And then I was supposed to start to go down, but then the heli came to get me out of there, basically.
So you were long line rescued from camp 4, the high camp?
7,050 meter was our camp 4. We had the highest camp 4 of anybody that season.
What was happening below at the base camp when they got to know that you must have not reached camp 4? So what was the movement that was happening there? Were they trying to send a rescue? Were they trying to communicate with you? Do you know what happened below? What was the response like?
Yeah, so they sent up the heli after I spent my night out. And I was walking down to my camp. They sent the heli up, but it was flying above me. So it was so far away, so I didn't even give a signal to them. But they did see me. They see me walking down, and they thought I was doing okay.
Okay.
And I should have tried, now when I think about it, of course, to make a signal to them.
So this was when you were about to reach high camp. That's when?
Yeah, I was after spending my night out, basically.
Okay. You had not reached the high camp yet. You were walking towards it, and that's when they were. Okay.
Yeah, in the morning. The weather was good.
Okay.
So they were up there with the heli looking for me, Gianpaolo, and I think one more person got evacuated as well from the high camp.
And how long ago after this? So you reached the camp, and how long till you got rescued from there? From camp?
It was less than 24 hours for sure, because I reached it during the day, and then they arrived in the morning the next day.
Okay. And after you got back to the base camp, you were flown to Kathmandu?
First of all, we make a treatment for the frostbite in the base camp.
Okay.
So we bring my fingers and toes, we put it into hot water. So we heat them for about 40 minutes first, because the most important part you can do for frostbite is the one you can do like as soon as possible. So if I would been knowing the consequences now, I would have even put my fingers into my pot at 7,000 meters and warmed them, because I had extra gas. I had supplies for several days up there in case, and I could easily spend like one gas canister just heating up the water and putting
for
my
your fingers,
to heat up. But I'm still happy I did find the camp, because I had my sleeping bag there. I was staying warm and dehydrated until the helicopter arrived. So without that, the consequences for my injuries would have been much worse for sure.
So for people who don't really know about frostbite, even I would like to know this. So once your finger starts getting cold, so what are the stages like? What happens? Like first it gets reddish, then it starts paining or something like that. What are the stages like? How does a frostbite progress?
Yeah, so on altitude, high altitude, it goes faster, because on body parts that are far away from the heart, basically, the further out they are, the easier you get frostbite there, because of the circulation of the blood and the transport of the blood vessels and everything. It's just not as efficient in the fingers overall. And some people can tolerate it better, I guess, than others. It can be a bit individual. It can be individual with the sensation of pain as well. because the pain can be connected to the nerves and not actual real frostbite that's painful. So from my experience, I've been walking with pain on altitude at 6,000, 7,000, but never longer than a couple of hours, I guess. And that has never resulted into something severe. And the same for my toes, I guess. Nothing. I mean, I got some light frostbite on Manaslu that disappeared after a couple of months. So that was from 5-hour plus exposure during the night without oxy from 7,400 up to above 8,000, basically. That was very light frostbite. So it's very individual as well with the frostbite and how much air you have in your boots, for example. Like if you have some space, sometimes it's not up to the socks, it's about the space you have in the boot as well for the extra air. So my toes managed much better than my fingers, partially because there was some extra space there, I think, with some air inside that was insulated into Olympus Mons Cube model boot. I bought new boots after Manaslu because I felt that I need to improve something for my feet. And also I got the heated socks from Lens. So I keep them on during the night for like 4 or 5 hours of medium heat during the summit push, and then the battery ends basically. But it's enough, it's just during the coldest hours during the night. So this is quite important to think about during the climb, the summit push, basically, because that is when you're climbing during the night, the coldest hours, and it can be windy, and you can get frostbite, and even just by taking out your hand for 10 seconds, changing like a battery on a headlamp can give you frostbite up there.
Yeah, exactly. After you were brought back to Kathmandu and the doctors examined your fingers, so what was their diagnosis? What did they tell you? How much was the damage and how many fingers would you lose? What was their first diagnosis of your fingers?
You don't really know how much you can recover, really. During the first week, you don't know because the necrosis haven't really settled in. It's still a bit blue and black. It can be gray. I think if it's really bad from the beginning, the fingers are gray. But mine were like, they were not the original color. They were more purple and blue. And the line of the frostbite improved during the 4 days in the hospital because we used the Elopros treatment 6 hours a day. I would actually recommend that you use it even longer. It's you put it into your system through the veins, and it heats up the body. Basically, it keeps the circulation better. So they have that in Kathmandu, in a civic hospital. So that is very recommendable to do if you get frostbite.
But is that the first response to frostbite that should be there?
It's this and hyperbaric treatment that you can do in the beginning to increase the circulation. And I mean, the Elopros had an effect. The frostbite was dropping a bit. The line of the frostbite on my finger was dropping down, so it was getting less. But you have to do this treatment I did it for 4 days. And now when I look back on it, I should have done it for 6 days because I thought we would have it back in Sweden, but we didn't have any similar treatment in Sweden. So I would recommend anybody who gets frostbite to actually check with your home country what kind of treatment they have, because maybe you'll have to stay in Nepal longer to get the full 6 days for Elopros, because it's efficient. It helps you it helps the tissue basically not to die through improving the circulation, so you can save more of the tissue. Because once you get the heavy frostbite, it's about what you can save of the damaged tissue and what you can and what you cannot. So you can, especially during the first week, you can do a lot to recover as much as possible, depending on how deep your frostbite is, of course.
One of my friends last spring got frostbite in his toe on Kanchenjunga, and when he got to Kathmandu, immediately he was told to go back to Mumbai because the HBOT, the hyperbaric, I think that's the same thing, HBOT, which is not available in Kathmandu. So he was recommended to do that immediately and come back, in India. There is no hyperbaric option in Kathmandu for the treatment.
Not that I know of.
That's very strange. That's very
so
strange.
The hyperbaric is, I haven't seen any scientific proof that it helps but from experience, it helps people with diabetes. They have bad circulation in the feet. And this is documented that HBOT will help you with the circulation, and it improves the damage on the feet for the diabetic people a lot. And it's basically the same thing that you have. You have tissue that is not fully functional because there is no circulation. It's a border area that you can improve. And what happens in the HBOT is that the O2 molecules get smaller and reach further out into your veins, so you can recover tissue that you cannot do without pressure, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, if you think logically, it's very helpful.
Yeah, it should work.
But it's hard to make studies on frostbite on HBOT because you need to have basically patients with same injury, which is really hard, and one should get it and the other one shouldn't. And I just haven't seen that, and that's why I cannot go to my hospital here in Sweden and say like, hey guys, I need to borrow the machine you have to sit inside because I have frostbite. that is not how it works here, unfortunately. So I had to look for a private one, and luckily in my hometown we have a family that is renting out one machine.
Okay.
So I could sit in that. And very actively during the first 20 sessions, I did 2 a day for like 2 hours. And then I went to like once a day, and then a couple of times a week, and then once a week. And after the surgery, I stopped basically.
Okay.
Once the fingers were healed.
Okay. So after you got back, you did the HBOT, as you said. And for how long did you do that? For how many weeks or months was this?
I mean, in total, it's been like a 10-month journey.
Okay.
But intensively during the first 10 days.
Okay.
Since I got back. And then it gradually became less and less and less with time, yeah.
And you could see the fingers getting better?
You can feel it in the fingers. The first time I was sitting there, you can feel some sensation in the fingers. You can. That is not placebo or anything. Yeah, I could really feel something in the fingers while sitting there, especially the first times. And it's also about the pressure you're applying in the HBOT, because you cannot sit during for the first thing, it's not allowed in Sweden to sit during hard pressure because it's dangerous. Basically, you can damage your ears and stuff. So, but you still need some pressure to have effect of the HBOT, basically. So, this is interesting as well, because it can be actually dangerous. And also the medical chambers that have HBOT, they can be pressurized with oxygen. Pure oxygen, so it's also a bit dangerous. You cannot have electronics inside, for example. Stuff like that. The one I was sitting in was pressurized by outside air, and then I had a mask with 97% oxygen, basically. So you get the oxygen boost together with the pressure is what has the healing effect or improved effect for your circulation, basically.
And when the frostbite happened, you must have realized that you will lose some part of your fingers. So what were the thoughts going on in your mind? Because it's a very life-changing thing to happen, because almost all activities in our life, we do it with our hands, from, brushing our teeth to having our food, everything, to climbing mountains. So what was going through your mind when you realized that, okay, shit, it's really happening, I'm gonna lose my fingers?
Yeah, so I understand that. I did understand that once the fingertips start collapsing, once the damage is really heavy, the fingertips like they get mummified, you can say. They start collapsing. So at the tips of the fingers, you can see the collapse damage, and that is non-recoverable. But together on all my fingers, I had the whole spectrum of basically the lightest frostbite until the worst bite, which is amputation. So I had it all spread out, and I decided basically already in the hospital in Kathmandu, like, this is where my recovery journey is starting. Like I'm starting right now. Now we already started to recover. I just have to keep on this path now. It's gonna take time, but I really want to do it, and to keep as much as my hands as possible. With heavy frostbite, the best thing to do is to wait. For me, it took up to 6 months until I could recover skin tissue on some parts of the fingers below the black necrosis.
Right.
Yeah. So from my experience, it can take up to 6 months for the black tissue to release and to have good, healthy skin underneath. And that was not possible on all my fingers because I had the whole spectrum of the frostbite, basically. Depending on how thick the frostbite is, you will be able, if it's on the layer of the skin, you can recover the skin. But if it's thicker, it's going to affect all the tissue beneath. And so it's all the finger tendons, and there is a lot of stuff in the fingers that will not be able to recover because it's so damaged. Yeah. So this is the challenge, because you don't know when you get it how deep it's going to be. So you just have to wait and see what you can recover. And also from my experience, it's better to just let the black tissue be, and you will see when it starts to peel off, basically. Yeah. So I got to recover my toes, my 2 big toes. They were in black tissue as well. Luckily, not so deep frostbite. So having the black necrosis does not mean that you're gonna lose a part. You can recover. I recovered both of my thumbs. They were also like with the black tissue, partially to down like 0.5 centimeter, 1 centimeter. They were covered in black tissue as well. The black tissue settles after 1 week after the frostbite.
Okay. Before that, it is red and then bluish, and then it gets darker.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why you should also do the iloprost. Until it settles, you can recover also through trying to improve the circulation. And maybe iloprost together with HBOT maybe would actually be the thing that works the best. I don't know. I never heard anybody doing both. And but if you get severe frostbite, for sure, try to get the iloprost, and more extended than only 6 hours. You can have it on even longer to try to recover more of the tissue, basically. Yeah. And also always check with your hospital back home what they have for treatment for you ready. They can be also ready preparing for you to arrive. So maybe you can get HBOT directly. Maybe they can get a specialist in that can help you, or so that's a good idea. So because I had frostbite on all stages, like this finger, the long finger, I could recover as well. The fingertip, that was the one that took 6 months. So it's fully recovered, the length and the nails. Yeah, and then we have the one that was a bit more damaged. We had to take the joint, the last joint off. So I'm missing a joint on this finger, which is like at least what I have left is working. This is the important part. The function of the hand is better when you can use the joints. So there is no reason to keep the joint if it's not workable, basically.
Exactly.
So that was the hard decision we had to take with that finger. And then you can see on my pinky fingers, the small fingers, some of them were they were the deepest necrosis basically.
Yes.
I had necrosis basically down here.
Yes.
Onto them. So they recovered really well. I'm still having issues with the nail because we saved the nail, and maybe I will do something about the nails onto those fingers. Maybe we totally remove it. Maybe we'll see how it develops. We'll see what's going to happen with the nails on those fingers. And we had to take a bit more on to my left hand because the damage was more significant, and maybe it was because I was laying with this side towards the mountain, and I was more cold against the side to the downswing and everything that affected the circulation. But anyway, all the joints I do have left are working, functional, and I'm training them every day to get the grip strength, first of all, but also the finger strength of tensioning only the last joint that I have left to put pressure on it, not with body weight right now, because it's not so strong. It's been resting for 10 months. And also it's only one muscle attached to it. If you have the furthest joint, you have one more muscle basically. So this muscle that I have left, I'm going to train it until I'm going to put my body weight on it again.
Awesome. And how? So after the surgery, now I've been following you on Instagram. You are doing a lot of various things to recover your strength and getting used to the new normal. So what are you doing to recover and train your fingers again back?
I mean, the feeling on the fingertips, luckily they healed up really well, and you have to like beat it against a bit, like desensitize the feeling of the top, because the nerves, there's still some nerves there you can still feel, but it's not the same feeling as before, so you have to put some tension on it basically to make it less sensitive basically. So I have to do this on all the tips that are shorter, and also for training wise, the grip strength is really important for me because I lost a lot of it. My grip strength completely vanished after not being able to even do like this for a couple of months, like bending the fingers. So the mobility in the joints was one of the first things I could actually work on this damage. To bend the joints, you have to work them basically every day to put them, like this one is perfect. I don't know if you can see.
Yes.
But the other ones are a bit limited in terms of movement, but it's coming back. Like this one, I'll show you. So this is really important issue as well. Like once you get frostbite, you want to keep your fingers straight, because at one point, the more severe the frostbite, the more your hands are gonna go like this from the frostbite. So, for example, this finger is not really straight because it was bent. It was becoming, when it became black, it was in a bent position basically. So it's not only the outside tissue that gets damaged, the inside joints and everything can get damaged as well. But it is recoverable. I recovered a lot of the functionality in the mobility of the finger joints. And this is also really important for the function of the hand overall, to be able to bend the joints you have both out but also in. So the best one of the best tools for that is the Metolius Grip Saver, which I bought. It's a climbing and rehab tool, I guess. So you put your fingers into the knuckles, and you have the tension both out, but also gripping the ball. So if you have the tension into both directions, you can. It helps with the fluids in the joints to make it better. So it's not only about doing like this; it's about the tension out. If you want to build the strength in best possible, fastest way to recover it. So it's also an important part of it. So I've been doing that from the beginning, and now once I was done with the surgery was just 2 months ago. Once the fingertips, everything was healed up, I could start hanging off the fingertips again, because I have enough of my hand to be able to be on the pull-up bar and to work. So from the beginning, I couldn't do, like 4 weeks ago, I couldn't do any pull-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've been just hanging and slowly, getting back to that motion because it's one of the base exercises I've been doing for years, I guess.
Yes.
And it's really good for the back, and it's really good for the shoulders and the arm to body connection. All the 6 muscles that sit around your shoulder gets worked, and it improves the whole part of your body, basically the shoulders, the back, and you will avoid a lot of injuries when you get older if you do pull-ups.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, your foundation will be strong.
Yeah, strong back, strong shoulders, and strong connection between the arm and the body, basically. It's the wrist strength also is quite affected. I'm doing all kinds of, I will share on my Instagram also later what I do to improve my wrist, because this part lost a lot of strength as well, because my fingers basically been in bandages for 10 months. So I haven't been able to, almost this, I haven't been able, I've been able to do this, but it hasn't been a bit, I haven't lifted anything heavy, basically, with my hands. So I have done some rehab during the time. It's important to be able to do what you can during the time you are injured, because frostbite is such an injury that takes such a long time to recover. If you want to try to fully recover, of course, you can make a surgery earlier, but then the doctors won't fully know where they should cut, basically, because they can cut living tissue off the finger as well.
You will lose more.
Happen. Yeah, you can potentially do that. So I would say to try to recover as much as possible. For me, it was up to 6 months. I had to wait until I could. I didn't have to do surgery on this finger. Because it healed itself, and also the thumbs healed themselves, and my toes healed themselves. So with time, there is a lot of potential to recover from frostbite. You just have to be very patient and try to do, in terms of training, whatever is possible for you. And for me, it's been doing home exercises with I have the ab roller. I've been able to do this. It's very good for the shoulders, the ab sit from the ground, some core exercises, a lot of rubber band, shoulder recovery. I had some issues with my shoulder after this, so I've been doing a lot of rehab work, and not so heavy, just the mobility.
Right.
Yeah, and like hip mobility for the legs, pistol squats for the knees a bit.
Yes.
And just, if this is my foot from the toes a bit, lift your foot so you have some tension in the foot lift when you want to start running again. There is still a lot you can do to be ready once you are recovered, so you don't get the injuries directly. So you start running again. You can start using your hands in the gym again, lift weights and stuff like this. And this was an important part for me to do, because otherwise I would be totally starting over right now, which I'm not. I still have some base strength.
Absolutely. You kept at it. You didn't completely stop. Whatever you could do, you did, so that you don't lose whatever.
Exactly. This is really important as well, to be able to recover faster.
Yes, of course. The body always recovers better when you keep it active. Body is supposed to be active. The more blood flow, the more heart pumps, the better recovery will be in any era of problems that we might have. The more active you are, the faster you'll recover. And and was the, before the surgery, it was all black. So is that painful? Do you feel anything?
It's not painful. It's the treatment that we tried to do on some of my fingers, where we tried to remove some of the black tissue. That was painful because when you have the black tissue and the healthy tissue, in between there is an area that is called the demarcation zone.
Yeah.
And this area, basically the healing of the tissue underneath the necrosis is going to be pushed out a bit into this area. So it's not going to be totally flat. And to have skin recovery, this area needs to be flat. So we used some nature-based thing that was basically burning down this area a bit, so I could have skin grow over.
Okay.
So we tried that treatment. That was painful. That was probably only, but that was sometimes really painful. At one point, I had to take they have to give me the injection to totally numb the
anesthesia.
Anesthesia, same thing as when you go to the dentist, basically.
Right.
They gave it in the
local anesthesia. Yeah, local anesthesia.
Yeah. So I lose the sensation on the two worst fingers, where we try to basically flatten out the area so the skin can grow. Because the more skin you can recover, the more of the finger you can keep. You have more skin to close the gap. So the more skin, this is the goal of a lot of my recovery, was to try to recover as much skin as possible, because then I would keep more of the fingers. Because you always have to close it at one point. Skin transplant is not optimal, really. It seems like, at least here in my town, where they actually have a lot of experience from doing surgery with hands, they even transplanted hands here in my town fully.
Transplanted hands?
Yeah, full hand transplantation. They've done it here in my clinic, basically.
Wow, it's the first time I'm hearing this.
You can watch it. I'll send you clips
Yeah.
So there is a clip where this woman that got new hands, she's like using her new hands with the phone like this, basically. Yeah. So it's working.
It's crazy. Mind blown.
Yeah. I wish I could transplant some new fingers maybe later in the future. No, really, I think I'll be fine. I have enough length on my hands to do everything I did before. I think just need to train it to get the strength back.
I have not gone through what you have, so I may not experience it. But from what I've seen about human beings is, whatever they have, they get used to it very quickly.
Yeah.
So I have been seeing your recovery, and it's amazing, man. It's really inspiring to see your spirits looking at it so positively. Yeah, I wanted to know, how long have you been climbing mountains, and how did the idea that you want to be a mountaineer came to you?
First time I was in the mountains, I was 10 years old. I was with my family on Gran Canaria. There's some 2,000-meter peaks, some 1,000-meter drops. I was on a trek, and it was the first time I remember that I had a nice experience, basically, in the mountains. And also this trek was for like 16-year-olds. I was 10 years old, but I still managed fine, for 9 kilometers trekking there. And I felt like some confidence from that, And then in school, we did a project where we climbed the highest mountain in Sweden without any guides. It's 2,100 meters. It's a bit in the wilderness. I would say there is no roads. You have to trek in, and it's a really nice wilderness area. So we did that, and we did a homepage about it and talked about it. And that was when I realized, you don't always have to have a guide with you in the mountains. There's a lot of stuff you can do yourself, as long as you prepare and read and talk to people with experience, and then build your experience from there. Of course, you cannot do everything from the beginning, but one step at a time, you can develop and be self-sufficient in an environment that is not always easy from the nature, I would say. So that journey started somewhere there. And also I did bicycle touring when I was 16. I started to cycle from Sweden to Denmark with friends, and then down to Europe, and then Norway. And we did quite a lot of cycling. Every summer we did some trip from home, basically. So that started when I was 16. It was a nice way to get on a nice adventure, Every day was a new day, new places, and it was quite exciting, really. So I kept doing that throughout my life. Bicycle touring, I cycled from Sweden to China. That's my biggest tour, 1 year and 12 days through 24 countries.
Wow.
And then I did...
How many days it took?
It took 1 year and 12 days.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, I was 22, 23 years old. And I cycled, that was also because I cycled through Northeast Africa, or we did. So we cycled basically from Sweden down through the Middle East and down to Africa.
Wow.
And then my friends decided they're gonna go to South Africa, and I said I want to go to Beijing, which was the original goal. So I started cycling myself for 7 months around the Arabic Peninsula and Iran. I was 5 weeks in Iran.
So this was all by yourself, no support vehicle, no cycling partner, no one?
For the first 5 months, I was with my friends, two friends from my hometown.
Yes.
And for the last 7 months, I was mostly by myself. It happened, you can meet some other cyclists, but it's quite rare. So I did meet my father. He came down to visit me once along the route. You know, you have the social contact mostly when you stay in hostels and stuff like this. You meet other travelers, and then on the road, it can be a bit hard in countries like Iran because they don't speak English and I don't speak Persian, their language. So, but it was easier for me in Central Asia. In Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, those countries, because it's old Soviet countries, and my parents are from. I grew up in the Soviet Union in Russia, basically. I moved from there when I was 5 years old, so I speak Russian.
Okay.
And I could use this language, which I got from my parents, in these countries, which was pretty amazing. And there you have some really nice mountains as well. In Iran, I climbed my first 5,000er, which is Damavand.
Yes.
The volcano, 5,600 or something meters, 5,600. And then I cycled some of the highest passes along the Pamir highway and explored some really nice areas there as well. Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, you have some really, really nice mountains. Peak Lenin is there, and we cycled along I don't know if this is the name of the peaks anymore, but it was the Karl Marx and the peak Engels Peak in Tajikistan. Some really beautiful 6,000ers close to the Afghan border.
Wow.
So I did a small detour to see them when I was there. I didn't climb 6,000ers back then. My record was 5,000. I think maybe my first 6,000er was actually Stok Kangri, I think, in Ladakh.
Yes. When was this?
This was 2011. I was there on a bicycle tour as well. I cycled around the Himalayas, basically, and Tibet.
Wow.
So my end goal was Kathmandu, and I cycled through Jammu Kashmir, through Pakistan, and then Jammu Kashmir to Pokhara later on, and then to Kathmandu. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I mean, this cycling side of yours is a whole different podcast we can do, because, you are saying so many things, but, the more we get into the details of it, I'm sure it's so interesting. And it's because going through all these countries and meeting people and, going through all kind of weather, when you are in the desert region, it's hot, and then it's cold in the north side of the world, and the Himalayan roads. How was it in the Indian Himalayan roads for you to cycle?
I really enjoyed the high passes, I really like the high passes. It's also connected to the altitude experience. It's a bit harder, with a bit thinner air, and I like to collect the high passes as well with the bicycle and enjoy that transition also when you arrive from the lowlands and make your way to the high altitude plateau, to the Tibetan plateau, and seeing the Buddhistic culture coming in from the Tibetan side, and the mixture between the the Muslim and the Tibetan culture, basically mixing and living in peace up there.
Wow,
that was really cool.
Absolutely.
And I would like to visit it again for sure. The North Indian parts, there is a lot to do there. There is a lot around Ladakh, and even closer to Nepal there as well.
Absolutely. So, when I shared with a few friends of mine who climb mountains that I will be having a conversation with you, and I spoke to them, like, you sent me the email yesterday with the list of peaks that you've climbed, and I will put that list in the description below for the people to just see how long of a list that is. I was just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You submitted around 40-50 mountains, I think, in total, right? Something like that, 40-50 mountains in total.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's unbelievable. And so they asked me to ask you, what is your preparation routine like? How do you train? Specifically, if you have to climb a 8,000er without oxygen. So what does your routine look like? A week in your life look like in regards of training?
I think overall it's great if you can get in 50,000 to 100,000 vertical meters. Like the meters you work vertically, because that's what mostly you're going to do on the 8,000er. So I think that is really important focus that I'm having the last couple of years, to get those meters into your legs before you go to the mountain, because you don't want to be that point. That shouldn't be the point of failure up there, that you are too slow, because you can actually fix that, through just training constantly. Some people live in the flat areas, like I also here in Sweden. It's a bit harder to gain those vertical meters, but you can do like the box steps. You step up onto the box, up and down the box. It's a bit boring, but I mean,
it works.
You get some vertical meters in, and if you have a treadmill that is a bit elevated as well, this is great. I think that is kind of a base focus, and then if you can get on altitude before your climb, this is also great. If you can start acclimatizing, I always try to do this. So before Manaslu, I was on an expedition in Tajikistan climbing Kommunizma peak 7,500 unsupported, and then I felt ready for Manaslu. Before Dhaulagiri, I was checking in Khumbu, and for 11 days, where I met another Indian climber, Venki. So we shared our. It was almost like a training camp. Every day we walk for like a full day and get the altitude in as well over the 5,000 meter passes. So this is also great. That area is really good because it's easy access, high altitude basically. Before, if you can even get above 5,000 meters, it's great for sure. And get to work every day during like 10 days. Your body's gonna be already from that pretty much prepared to. It knows what it needs to be able to do when you. During extended amount of time, repeating the action, the body is gonna adapt to the circumstances you put it into, basically.
Right.
So that's why it's great.
How important do you think, in your experience, are the strength workouts that we have to do in the gym to get ready for the mountains? In my training, it is like 60-65% of endurance work, mostly in the mountains, and the remaining is focusing on the strength and balance and coordination. So do you also focus on strength work when you are training for a mountain?
Not during the month prior or the months that I try to be on altitude, on and off altitude. I'm not in the gym for but before Annapurna, I was in South America to do a lot of 6,000 meter climbs. So the acclimatization is more important prior the climb, and specifically climbing without oxygen. It's even more important that the body is already a bit adapted before you arrive for the expedition. The expeditions today can also be a bit adapted for people with oxygen, which means that they are acclimatized before you, because they don't need as much acclimatization. So if you can get acclimatization in before you climb, it's great. So acclimatization, vertical meters, and testing out my body that everything is working on altitude before I go on the expedition is. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the confidence really if I haven't prior been on the altitude, and I feel like everything is working on altitude, at least 6,000 meter plus. But I mean, right now back home, I'm in the gym every day. There is no altitude here, hardly any hills, and you can, of course, it's going to improve your overall performance on the mountain if you train for it, specifically legs. I do a lot of mobility right now also. I want to be a bit flexible with my legs, so when I'm running, I can have less injury risk, I guess. To prepare for that, it's a bit prehab training, you can say. And also I started doing average training in the gym, like deadlifts, squats now, to prepare, build up the body again. Some muscle, not too much muscle. I just want to be feeling strong in the body overall, you know.
Yes.
For the 8,000ers, you don't need that much muscle.
No.
You need some strength in the core, carrying the backpack. Strong shoulders can be good for carrying, basically, for the weight here. Feel better, but it's nothing crucial. You look in Nepal and the locals there in the mountains, you know, the porters, they don't have much muscle, but they're outperforming every Westerner.
They are having a cigarette and climbing at 7,500 meters, like it's a park walk. And I haven't seen most of the Sherpas doing what we call as workout or training, you know. They just live a life which is a workout by itself. If they have to get from one place to another, they have to climb a hill, go down, climb up. So that helps.
It's like a lifetime training for them, because they walked through the villages a lot. I mean, a lot of parts in Nepal there is no roads, so they walk massive distances basically. So they're strong mountain walkers naturally, because the environment is mountains. So absolutely. And also the generational background from coming from the Tibetan plateau. Same thing in India with the locals there that have arrived from generations from the Tibetan plateau. I feel like those people are more adapted with the high altitude. They're outperforming the average Westerner climber without any training, I would say.
Of course, because it's their life. It's climbing is literally in their blood. And I had read some studies where they had compared the blood oxygen levels, like, or not the levels, the capacity of the blood to carry oxygen of a Sherpa versus a person who is living on the sea level. And their blood is made in such a way that it naturally carries more oxygen. So climbing is literally in their blood. So I have one last question for you, because this is a question which I, as a mountaineer in India, get asked the most. I'm sure you also must have received this question from here and there all the time. How do you raise the money to climb so many mountains?
I have been working. I don't have any financial sponsors really. Maybe some clothes here and there. So I've been working in Norway with logistics. I've been a manager in the logistics business. And so during 2020 was supposed to be a big year for me when I wanted to try Everest without oxygen. I was training in South America when the COVID breakdown. So I was trapped there. And then when I came back home, the logistic business exploded. So I was just working for 1 year, basically saving up money because everything was closed. The climbing gyms was closed and we had a lot of work. So that's always how I did it. Basically, throughout the years, I've been working in the logistics business, working extra hours, working night shifts and stuff like this, on and off. And once I want to go, I say to my employer that I really have to go. Can you give me like 1 year off without pay? Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work.
So if it did not work, you left the job?
Yeah. Yeah. But having a good relationship to the company, they can always trust me to perform. So I always was one phone call away from getting my job back if I wanted to, basically. Yeah. So I've been really lucky in that relationship between me and the company has been really successful, I guess. So I've done this on and off for 12 years, I guess, working and then doing a project, doing a project. And because I feel like if you really want to, especially the last couple of years, to perform in the high mountains, you really need to have the time to recover and train for it. For the 8,000ers, if you want to climb without oxy, I think it's hard to. It is possible to combine with the work, but my work, I was working night shift and then day shift and then evening every week. My rhythm of sleep was messed up, and it's just not efficient for what I wanted to achieve.
Right.
With my body and the preparation. So yeah. So we'll see. Probably have to work now soon again, because I've been climbing and I've been injured for a long time. Yeah.
So what are you planning next? Are you planning to climb? Do you have a project in mind?
I always have projects.
Okay.
Sure.
So what are you thinking next?
I had a lot of time to think. The thing now with my fingers is also the sensitivity for the cold. I need to wait for my nerves to heal up a bit more before I start training them for the cold.
How long do you think?
6 months from surgery, basically.
Okay.
For
4-5 months more.
Yeah, before I start pushing the fingers with the cold exposure, basically. Yeah. So I'm thinking something where I can get some nice volcanoes in, some vertical, but maybe to around 4,000 meters, because that is manageable.
Yes.
And that is very manageable. So like a bicycle traverse of Indonesia, including all the highest volcanoes there, which are up to 4,000 meters. That would be something awesome to do. Or cycling in the Alps and just stop and do treks and trail runs.
Wow.
You can go up to 4,000 meters there as well. For getting that vertical power back, basically. And also the power of the body working every day and performing every day. The long-term endurance is coming back as well with the cycling and the mix with trail running, basically. So it's a really good combination to train for bigger projects later on, once I discover my potential again with the fingers.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you doing all that you wish to do. And before we end this, I have what is a rapid fire?
I have to ask really. I have to respond to your questions really fast, I guess.
Yeah. So, which is your favorite region where you've climbed in the world?
Nepal.
Nepal. Why?
The altitude and it's the biggest views, the biggest walls, the biggest mountains. Pokhara, below 1,000 meters, you can see 4 mountains above 8,000.
Yes.
You cannot do that anywhere on the planet, basically. So it's if you want to enjoy the biggest monuments that nature have created, it must be Nepal.
Absolutely. Which is your favorite movie, if there is any?
Maybe Fight Club.
Okay. Which is your favorite mountain movie?
Mountain movie, let's see. Do I even have one? I was so disappointed on the Everest movie because it didn't use the sunglasses. The details, some of the details are not correct.
I saw that, the sunglasses.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Anatoly Bukharev, one of the best climbers
yes.
in that generation, but he didn't use the sunglasses. It would be sunburned. The eyes would just not work. You always have to do that. And I just get disappointed when they get those details wrong.
Right.
When they show our sport or our passion, they should.
Right. Details.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone back in the day when he jumps across with ice axes and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's a crazy movie, huh?
Yeah, Vertical Limit as well.
And which is your favorite food?
The first thing, because now we have a bit Nepali Himalaya, it's the dal bhat for sure.
Dal bhat, really?
When I come down from 8,000 meter climb, I would preferably have a chicken dal bhat.
Oh, okay.
If I can choose. Yeah.
And can you eat spicy?
I eat a lot of spicy, yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome, man. Which is your favorite vacation place?
I just came back from Tenerife, so right now it's Tenerife, because Tenerife at outside here it's snowing right now. In Tenerife you have like 21 degrees.
Oh, perfect.
There is a constant like sun guarantee, and also it's a really vertical island. On just outside from the beach, you can go climb and get a proper workout, just running, and get a lot of vertical meters in. The highest point is 3,700 meters, which is a nice volcano.
Wow. Wow. And beach or mountains?
Mixed. So, for example, with a bicycle tour, if I would go to Indonesia, I would go to the mountain and go to 4,000 meters, and then I will cycle down the beach, and then I will do it again for the next one, something like this.
Awesome.
The contrasts are the beautiful thing.
Yes.
We can appreciate something different from being into the opposite environment, basically.
Exactly. People always ask me, which one do you prefer? And I'm like, there is no one over the other. Ocean has a different thing to offer. Mountains have completely something else to offer. You can't compare, and you can't prefer one over the other. It's very difficult. And which is the one place where you have not been, but you wish to go in the world?
So now we've been talking about Indonesia. I haven't been there. I know there's a lot of 4,000 meter volcanoes, 3,000 meter volcanoes. And right now with the fingers, it seems like a place that I would survive without further frostbite. So it would be nice.
Okay. And this is a question which I ask everybody. If logic or science or money was not a limit, which is that one crazy thing you would like to do? For example, my dream is to climb the highest mountain on Mars, something like that. If logic was not a limit.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's
what
awesome.
it's actually a 12,000 meter high, that mountain. It's crazy. I think
28,000.
No, 28,000. Right.
Yeah.
Crazy, unbelievable.
The diameter of that volcano is also so large.
Yeah.
So it's like you cannot. We have nothing to compare on this planet. How massive that thing is.
Yes.
It would be. Everest is nothing in comparison. But actually, I mean, in our Sun galaxy, the highest vertical volcano is under the water. I think somewhere outside of Hawaii. There is a mountain that is actually vertically the biggest one in our solar system, but it's underwater.
Yes, it's I think 19,000 meters, something like that.
Yeah, something like this. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the name now, but it's pretty cool that.
I knew the name. It's right here. It's not coming out. I knew the name for so many years. I cannot recollect it right now. So what is that one crazy goal that you would have?
You know what? I would like to try actually the 8,000ers, how many I can do in rapidly after each other during a season without oxy. This would be interesting. This would be like something I would like to try, but it is a bit expensive. It is expensive really. And it's also time consuming, but this is a project I would like to try if I could. I need to first figure out how to deal with my fingers on altitude, but that would be like something I'm thinking of in a fantasy in the future, maybe.
So
with
basically
unlimited resources.
Yeah. Like basically something like what NIMS did, but without O2. No?
Yeah, something like this. Without support, without support. Anybody.
Wow.
Only fixed ropes. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe something like this.
Yes, I'm sure.
That is like a dream of mine. If there is no limits, and also I would have to carry like a shitloads of batteries for my heated gloves for the fingers, So I'd have to be much stronger than I am right now.
If one person who is dead, if you had the power to raise him back to life, to ask him one question, who would that person be, and what would that question be? It can be anybody from Jesus to Buddha to any mountaineer that you've looked up to, anybody.
There is a Swedish mountaineer, Göran Kropp.
Okay.
But he passed away 2002. ask. He was somebody who we in Sweden. He was like a Malli Mastan Babu, maybe in India or something like this, a pioneer for us in terms of exploring the high altitude without oxygen. And so I have a lot of questions for him. I would like to ask, because he was a big inspiration of mine. He cycled from Sweden to Nepal and climbed Everest, for example.
Yes, I think I've read his book. He had written a book, right?
Yeah.
The Longest Climb, the book was called, I think. I think it was called The Longest Climb, yeah. The book.
Something like this.
Yes.
I don't remember. But yeah, he was a really inspiring figure here in Sweden when I was growing up, So the question would be, there's a lot of questions really, but I would maybe ask him about his K2 climb.
Okay.
Because he didn't get the best attention because he lost his camera somewhere on the mountain. So I want to know some more details about his K2 climb, like what happened there, what happened on this climb, because there is no summit photo, but he claimed he's been up there, and I know he was strong enough to do it, but just like a mystery about it. Yeah, right. I guess so.
Which year was that?
It was the first Swedish summit of K2, I guess. 91.
91. Wow.
Yeah.
It was way, like, I was not even born. I was born in 95.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so before we end this, if there is one message or advice to all the young climbers in India who are watching right now, what would you say to them?
Have patience and continuity in whatever you want to do and achieve. Develop patience, develop continuity over time, build the habits over time, and that's how you in the end will reach what you want to reach. You just have to be ready that it can be something that takes years to achieve. If it's something big, but you can go one step at a time and you build yourself up to achieve it, basically. If it's mountains, or if you want to complete something in the academical world or job-wise, whatever, you have to be dedicated, and you have to realize that it's going to take a lot of time and practice. And with time, you're going to improve. You'll also reach plateaus that you with time can overwork, but it's all about patience and dedication, and understanding that the discipline you create for yourself can also create the freedom for you to live a life that you want.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, brother, for your time and sharing your story so honestly. And I'm sure whatever you've said will give a lot of clarity, a lot of inspiration to the young people who are watching this. And I hope to speak to you again soon. Hopefully the next time we speak, it will be in person somewhere, God willing. We meet somewhere in the mountains, and would love to meet you. And I really wish you all the best for your recovery, and I wish you the best.
Thanks a lot.
Everybody
who watched this have to smash the like button as well if they enjoy the conversation.
Yes, just smash it
for the YouTube algorithm as well, so more people can see what it's like about the 8,000ers, build an understanding what it's like to climb up there. With time, as a community, this is going to grow a lot. More people are going to get up there, but it's good to share the stories of failure as well. It's not only successful stories from up there.
Absolutely.
And this is my story is one of the failures. And we all experience failures in life in some way or another.
Absolutely. When I climbed Annapurna, it was, from the world's eye, it was a failure because I could not summit, because summit is success. That's what people think. But for me, success is making back alive. If you've made it back alive, you are a bloody successful human being, because, no summit. That's for the people to see. But the experience you've had, you've come back a much more wiser human being before you went. So I think that is success. And as long as we come back alive, there's nothing like failure. Awesome. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate the conversation today with you as well. It was nice to share thoughts with somebody who is doing the climbing on the 8,000ers in the Himalaya as well. And hopefully your audience will get some value today.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.